Hey everybody, we are Robert, Martin, and Francis, and this is Snakes and Otters, pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready, we're about to live in your head rent-free. Welcome back, listeners. Thanks for being with us here every week at Snakes and Otters. Be sure to spread the word about us on your favorite social media platforms. Follow us and retweet us. We are on Twitter at Snakes and Otters, and of course you can always send us an email at snakesandotterspodcast@gmail.com. Now,
I'm Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis.
That's the way we always have to open.
We don't have to do it in that order. You could have started.
I don't know, it doesn't feel right when we don't open that way.
It kind of has become the way we do things now.
Yeah.
That's all right. You could start with that,
I don't
Robert.
know, feels weird not to do it that way.
That's right.
Anyways, so this is one of our Heroes episodes. And so this one is, not an action hero, not that kind of hero. This is, to me, the kind of man you look up to for what he's accomplished because it's an admirable thing. He did good. He done good with his life. Mm-hmm. The man I'm talking about is Thomas Aquinas. Mm-hmm. Now, Thomas Aquinas was born in the 13th century, so he is not a modern man by any sense of the imagination. He's not probably a lot of our listeners have heard of, which is a shame.
At best, you might know the name.
Right.
But you probably can't go much deeper than that.
Exactly. So he lived basically 50 years. He did not live long, which makes the amount of writing that he put out and the impact that he had phenomenal when you think about it.
Yeah.
Just a little background. He was an Italian Dominican friar. He's well known as a philosopher, obviously. He's a Catholic priest and a doctor of the church. There are only, I think it's now 35, isn't it?
Sounds right, yeah.
35 doctors of the church. And a doctor of the church is basically recognizing somebody that was such a giant intellect or had such a giant impact on thinking, whether it be Catholic thought in particular or thinking in general. Mm-hmm. Although Aquinas did both.
Right.
So he really gets it. So he was very influential in his time and for centuries later on.
Well, yeah, he was well known at the time too,
and he was.
We think of giants, intellectual giants, only coming to their own after they're dead. He didn't. He was
and he followed some giants. He lived in an age of intellectual giants in the church. Yet he's the one that's remembered. Right. One of his his mentor, I believe it was Saint Albert the Great, and he was called the Great. But people know Thomas. He was not Thomas the Great. One of his other contemporaries, I believe, was John Duns Scotus.
Yes, who was a Franciscan.
He was a Franciscan, and he had, he was well known in his time, not so well known now, except as a proof, a theological proof that we don't need to get into here. And so he was influenced by and influenced others to a great degree, as we said in the show prep. He was one of the last men it was possible. I don't have an exact cutoff date that could probably know most, if not all, of what could be known. As far as a learned person, doesn't mean he knew every street and road in every town.
He was V'ger.
He was V'ger. Yes.
Oh, that's good.
That's excellent.
Very good.
That's excellent. But he didn't come back to destroy the world if he couldn't find the creator.
Star Trek: The Motion Picture, just in case you missed it.
Yeah, but he could know all that was knowable at the time.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the
and
how important an intellectual.
Yeah.
As the type of scholarship that you're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. And it's not so much that he knew a lot of stuff, because you can know a lot of stuff and it'd be worthless, right? I mean, we know all kinds of people like that, and we occasionally fall into that ourselves. Bunks of useless information.
I have a ton of it.
So, but what made him important was the effect that he had on people and things, thought, systems that came after him. He's a foremost philosopher of his time. Mm-hmm. He was probably the father of reason in the world, post fall of Rome.
Right.
He is not known for that outside of the church, but the Age of Reason really tried to follow his principles. They failed it horribly when it went very ugly, but his influence is just incredible. He believed in reason, not above all else, because he was a Catholic priest, obviously.
Yeah, right.
But he believed that through reason, through God's gift of reason to man, we could know just about everything. We might not be able to know that Jesus Christ was the Son of God through reason. That's revelation.
Right. That's something different.
But he supremely believed in natural law.
Right.
He believed in things that were universal goods and truths.
Some things are self-evident.
Some things are self-evident. And even those things are not self-evident, you can reason your way to.
Right.
Right? And so he was very big on that. He was also great in the sense that, we talk about everybody's, well, maybe not everybody, but we've all heard of the theological virtues and the cardinal virtues, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He came up with those.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Faith, hope, and charity. He was the guy that put those together.
Technically, I think St. Paul put those together.
Yes, but
he pulled it out for his virtues.
Firmly defined them.
Yes.
Yeah.
As part of those 7 cardinal virtues, there's the faith, hope, and charity, but there's also where's it in our notes here?
Prudence, temperance, justice, and fortitude.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. I found it just as you said it. So those virtues do not require the existence of God.
Not at all.
But they certainly demonstrate the existence of
That's
God
right. Yes.
for those of us that are believers. Now, these are things that he thought were universally true.
Yeah.
The theological virtues, he would have said, are universally true too. Also through reason. Because most everybody believes in something.
Right.
That's faith. Even those who don't believe in anything have to have faith that there's nothing. They don't like to hear that, but honestly, I think that I think that's true.
It's very well put, sir. I like that.
Hope. Everybody hopes for something better. For certainly for their children, if not for themselves.
That's right.
Charity or love, depending on your translation.
Right.
Often when we talk about love in the Bible, we mean charity. But by charity, we don't mean just giving to the poor.
Right.
We mean caring for our fellow man because they are our fellow man.
Right. Compassion, kindness, all of those things are subsumed into charity.
Almost every culture everywhere has recognized all 7 of these. The faith, hope, and charity. The prudence, temperance, justice, and fortitude. These are all good things.
That's right. Naturally so.
Naturally so.
Yeah. You don't have to debate that. Right.
They form, I think, one of the common foundations of practically every society that we know.
Dare we say civilizations?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I would use civilizations here and society interchangeably. I would say, I will not name them because that would be getting into political things. I think you could probably point to some civilizations, some cultures that would not agree with some of these, and certainly do not express them as a matter of course in their existence. But like I said, they're the exceptions. Some of them may even be large, but they are the exceptions in history. And even their own texts will sometimes will usually profess these in some way, even if they're not acted on.
Yeah, so, they at least recognize they are good, even if they don't practice them.
Or they don't interpret it the way we do.
Right.
Probably that's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
They're universally held, but not everybody interprets them the same way.
Yeah. Right. What is that? What are these things? That's where we...
Well, right. Well, even in our country, we could argue that everybody believes charity is a good thing.
Sure.
But how do you express your charity?
Justice. Justice is demanded by everybody. But it's very different depending on what side of where you're at.
Loaded words like fairness.
Right.
Well, that's correct.
Yeah.
And for me, I've said this before, and I've used it in various places, and that is that given the choice between justice and mercy, I'll take mercy every time.
Absolutely, every single time.
Which mercy, you can say, is tied into faith, hope, and charity.
Yeah.
So anyways, I didn't even touch on his influence in politics and society. There's a lot there, too.
Right.
But I see Martin over here is raising up his glass, so it's a good time to break and let other people talk.
Yeah, I was just going to, before I took another sip of my Woodford Reserve Double Oak that you brought for us tonight, which is, whoa.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah,
good.
I'm drinking it too.
And so get yourself a snortful. I was just going to say that as a heathen and general outsider of everything,
that's a good way to put it.
This is not a person that was in my pantheon, but I'm very moved by your enthusiasm. I'm again, like what we talked about with Thomas More, I'm so glad to see you guys personalize these things, and I'm loving your enthusiasm, Robert, about all of this. And so when I was doing a little bit of research to prep for this,
I was to say, are you learning something on this? Yeah,
it's
outside your experience.
Yeah, it's outside the wheelhouse, but he's the guy that's synthesizing Aristotelian thought,
right,
with Catholic teaching
Yeah.
or church teaching. You know,
At the time, that's it.
that's it. And being this exponent of intellectual inquiry into the faith and into the world at large.
Right, yeah. It's not limited.
It's he's the guy that's saying you can use your reason, you can use your senses to discover the world.
Yes.
To trust your eyes, to trust that there are things that happen in this natural world that are real. Stuff's not magic. You know,
Right, that's right.
It's a statement out of the wilderness of all of these things that go on in this.
It's out of the darkness of paganism and superstition that he is dragging us. Because, make no mistake, in the 1200s where he's living, that stuff is very much
It's
alive
still
and
the
well.
Dark Ages.
Oh, you
it's
betcha.
still the Dark Ages. He's putting intellectual inquiry and the state of reason on his back and lugging it out of the Dark Ages practically alone.
Let me add something to that, because I object only, and I understand why you're calling it the Dark Ages, because culturally that's the term for the
That's
time.
right.
Yes,
Well,
that's
it's
the
easily
accepted
recognizable to
historical
listeners.
term.
I just want to lay the context for the time he's in, because he wasn't a unique light, right?
Yeah.
So when we think about what was really going on in Europe at the time, we are some 750 years removed from the fall of Rome in the West.
Right, and Augustine.
And slightly longer than for Augustine, yes.
Right.
Who was probably the person that, after Aristotle, he stands on the shoulders of Augustine.
They're very similar
much.
ways.
But he would have been trained at university. There were universities in Europe
Right. That's correct.
Yep.
for several centuries at this point.
Right.
So learning had not stopped. Now, I think you could make an argument that because of insularism, where we turn in on ourselves,
Right.
Partially because the world went dark after the fall of Rome. That's where we do get that term.
Yeah, this is post-Dark Ages.
No, you would say...
Well, again, it's a very nebulous way. Some people say the Dark Ages are from the fall of Rome to the Renaissance.
Yeah.
But that's not
It's
not
1,000 years.
That's the Middle Ages. I get that. That's not...
I would call this the Middle Ages.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm guessing you're going here. Is Dark
Ages are more
kind of over with.
the first couple of centuries where society in Europe is reorganizing itself.
That's right.
Nations are coming into being where they're really kind of straightening that. By the time you get the Holy Roman Empire, I think we're really moving into...
So you can say the Dark Ages are up to, say, Charlemagne.
Give or take.
Not a bad way.
I would probably go a little bit longer.
Probably a little bit longer because the Holy Roman Empire fractured right after he died.
Well, right, yeah.
But every empire does,
Yeah, that's right.
But my point is, though, there's a lot of stuff going on intellectually. He's not...
He's not alone.
He's not alone. And... but he is also doing what you're saying.
He is the foremost guy.
He is the foremost guy. And certainly, we remember him that way. Mm-hmm. But he is also that guy that he did put intellectual curiosity on his back and carried it. I would posit this, and I didn't even think about this before the show started.
Preach it, brother. Preach it.
I would posit that he is the father of the Renaissance.
Oh, absolutely. We were kind of talking about that around that. We didn't actually get there, but it's exactly right. That which we kind of, when we talked about Voltaire, it's kind of the end.
Mm-hmm. He's the beginning.
He's the beginning. That's
He's
exactly
the beginning.
it. Because he said things that nobody else had thought about, and everybody goes, "Oh, yeah, of course." And we gotta get distracted, I think, easily with him because of his great work, the Summa Theologica, which is very much all about this, but it's also all about God in particular. It's theology in particular. We forget that it is an exercise in reason.
Yes.
It's the example that proves the system that he lays down.
I think one of the reasons I call him the father of the Renaissance is this. He's one of the first, certainly he's remembered for it, even though it's not the thing he is remembered for. It's there if you look.
Yeah.
He is putting the individual forward. Not alone.
Right.
Not as an individualist, not as a humanist.
Right.
Part of the greater whole. But he's reminding the church and society, because remember, this is a time of divine right, age of kings, right?
Right, absolutely.
Reminding those who have power that the individual is still important and still has worth, because in this time, both inside the church and out, that was not a well understood or believed concept.
Well, yeah, feudalism reigns at
Exactly.
this time, which is by definition not about that. It's about using individuals for their...
Feudalism is another name for serfdom.
That's exactly it.
I mean, essentially.
Yeah.
That's right. You are indentured to
Exactly.
your overlord.
Yeah, he didn't. Your overlord didn't necessarily own you, but you couldn't do anything without his approval.
That's right.
So this, and it's very when he talks about having these cardinal virtues and these theological virtues. These are things that people possess because they are human beings.
It's enshrined in the person of humanity.
Yes. As Augustine put it.
Yeah, exactly.
Natural law is written on our hearts.
Yeah.
Our hearts burn. Or was it, our hearts are restless, Lord, until they rest in you.
Right.
Because that's the recognition that there is something eternally true, naturally true, and we seek it.
And it had been forgotten up to this point. Because with Augustine, I mean, his writings survived, but
there was a period, and this I think you could call it part of the
Dark Ages,
where a lot of writing was suppressed.
that's correct. Well,
Think about the movie Name of the Rose, the whole thing with the library.
Yeah,
I doubt that's comes from history, but it illustrates. What did Dan Rather say? It has truthiness to it.
okay.
In the sense that, it was a story about knowledge that was suppressed because those that had power thought it was dangerous.
Sure.
Whereas Aquinas would say, knowledge is not dangerous.
It never can be.
How you use it can be dangerous.
That's right.
But, that's obviously true.
Yeah.
The knowledge in and of itself is a good. Knowing that we can make either an atomic bomb or a nuclear reactor that powers an entire city, the knowledge to do that is good. Now, making the bomb and using it is bad.
Right.
But, again, it's the
knowledge-
same knowledge or derived from the same thing,
Right.
but to two different ends.
Knowledge is morally neutral.
Yes. Only acts can be evil.
Correct.
Not people, not knowledge.
Right.
Not objects.
And not objects.
Yeah. And
only
that's
acts.
And that is a revolutionary for him. Nobody's talking like that before him.
Objects can be profane because they can be, in the sense that they can be crafted in a way that mocks what is good and true.
Yeah, they carry an intention with
Yes.
them, potentially.
Yes. But the objects themselves, in and of themselves, are not evil in that sense.
Yeah, profane and evil are two different... It's a
Right.
nuance that's...
Right. It's
It's important.
If I don't attach any, say, pagan value to a statue of Mary,
Yeah.
then it's not evil.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm a good old Baptist boy, then I think that statue of Mary is evil because I think that the papists are worshiping it.
Well, to quote John Milius, it's pagan idolatry.
That's right. That and they're all being used.
That's right.
But they're all being used.
So, anyways, I've talked a lot.
That's okay. Again, I'm so moved by your enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. This is terrific stuff.
I got to tell you, it's more than I thought I had in me going into this episode.
Yeah. Aquinas is so tough because there's so much that he wrote, and we're not going to get into his quotes because we just don't have time. And I mean, just one in itself is an episode sometimes.
Yeah.
So much. I mean, the Summa Theologica. It's kind of like the writings of Augustine was kind of also what was like the writings of Augustine and Aquinas, that nobody can really get their arms around them.
Yeah.
They're that profound. There's that much there.
But that's what you were bringing out, though.
Yeah.
This is the stuff that grabs us.
Yeah.
This is, that we're, again, guys, we're not 3 philosophy graduates here.
No.
I got a couple of business degrees and an IT guy.
Art degree.
Art degree.
Although, in fairness, we did have both philosophy and theology as undergrads.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
did.
yeah, that's right.
Granted,
But
liberal
we've had
arts,
a little bit more since then.
that's right. Yeah, but it's a liberal arts education. Thank
Yes.
you, Bellarmine University.
College.
College. I know. I'm just kind of putting both parts out there.
This is the stuff that grabs us, and then we take it and we're trying to show you why it moves us so much.
I think he's one of those guys that we unintentionally try to imitate.
Mm-hmm. Ah. Okay, yeah.
Because, like him, we recognize there are things that are objectively true.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
And we're trying to make a reasoned intellectual inquiry, or find an engine for that inquiry into, like you said, a giant pile of of this wonderful stuff. So, absolutely, he's a hero. Absolutely, he's a hero.
Well, yeah, because he. It's not enough to just kind of sit there and go, "Oh, isn't that nice?" and go on. That's what he's railing against in many ways. He's saying, no, life doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to accept things at face value. You have the God-given ability to go further than you realize. You're often just not doing it. And that was true in the 1200s. It's also true today, boys.
Well, one of the things people.
Yeah, exactly. People are people.
Well,
we've discovered that in our podcast. I forget which one it was, but we've talked about that. Yeah. People are people. I don't care when and where you're talking about.
That's exactly right. Yes, the human person has not yet been perfected, and I don't think. We believe it's not possible in this life.
Right. The interesting thing, though, one of the interesting thing.
Yeah,
one of the interesting things. About him that is not just admirable because of the using reason to know truth, even to know God, is when you take the religious philosophy aspect out of it and look at some of the more practical stuff. He wrote on an economic system that we would recognize as a market economy. Yeah. This is in the 1200s, in the 13th century.
In the midst of feudalism.
This is something that most people would recognize as a good thing. The ability of the person to make a living with his own person, with his own property, and to buy, sell, trade, he probably would have phrased it as, in order to do better for himself and his family. That's probably not the exact words he used.
Sure,
but essentially, that would describe a market economy. Now, not capitalism the way we talk about it today, because it's different. Capitalism has a market economy aspect to it.
Right.
So does distributism, which is the economic theory that Chesterton put forth. And actually, distributism is more akin to what we recognize, or what we think we call capitalism. In the sense, it likes small businesses. Most Americans, we like the little guy.
Yeah.
We rail against the big corporations all the time. But that's the kind of thing that he would look at, because to him, a big corporation would have been unthinkable.
Right.
Dare I say, unreasonable.
Ooh, very good, sir. Very good. I like that.
So, this is some centuries before a market economy took hold again with the Renaissance.
Yeah, he almost has no point of reference for this. He's reasoned it out.
He has reasoned it out.
Yes.
Yeah, he's taking...
He has learned how to make a cannon. No, wait, that's different. That's Star Trek.
That's right.
He's taken Aristotelian principles, moved that into an understanding of natural law.
That's right.
That guards our ability to engage in a free exchange.
Yes. And I like the way, because you stopped there. A free exchange of whatever.
Of whatever.
Ideas, goods, doesn't matter.
You have 3 baskets, I have 1 spear, I need baskets, you need spears, let's trade.
Or, I have 3 baskets, take one, fill it up, and bring it back, and you can have another one when you're done.
Whatever works, whatever is mutually acceptable,
and also
is seen as a good.
Yes, and it's protected as part of natural law.
Presuming, because mutually acceptable
trade in trade.
Well,
that's right.
Even so, you make the argument, presuming that there are certain conditions met, because obviously you have mutually acceptable trade that still is not.
Well, that's right. We have human slavery, for example.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I thought you were. Yeah.
He also, one of the show notes that we had talked about some of his philosophy can be seen at the heart of libertarianism. In many ways that's true, but I think it's the extreme example. In the sense that, to him, because the individual had more worth than most contemporary society for him would have thought, that sounds very libertarian to us.
Right. That's a modern interpretation of him.
Yeah, it's really hard to take the 13th century and plug it into modern political parties. So.
You just can't do that. But what they do share, though, is the sense that the individual does have worth. Yeah. And that the individual conscience should not be violated. Now, this is something the church still teaches today.
Absolutely.
Now, we've always taught that. We've not always been very good at supporting it,
or even articulating it.
Or articulating
He does
it.
a great job with that.
But that is something that's always been at the heart of the church, because faith requires assent of the
Correct.
will.
Informed assent.
Yeah. You can't force somebody to be a Jew or a Christian.
Right. Even though it's been done.
Even though it's been done.
Yes.
Technically we'd say, well, that doesn't really count.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah, it's
So,
the exception that proves the rule.
So the state had certain authority that should be respected, but the individual had autonomy that should be respected as well. Most modern 21st century people recognize that. Well, duh, of course that's true.
Right.
It's self-evident to us.
But it was not at the time.
800 years ago, it was not.
That's right. It was revolutionary at the time.
Exactly. Now, he would have said that a monarchy would have been the best form of government, but he would not have had any experience with much else directly, anything else directly. I'm not really sure how much he would have been familiar with how democracy in Athens would have worked, or how a republic would have worked in the Senate. He certainly had no experience of a modern representative democracy.
Yeah.
No.
I doubt he would still say that a modern representative democracy, I doubt he would say that a modern representative democracy would be better than a monarchy.
Well, if reason is the essential element here, most of the people, the common people, who are serfs, by the way, have no ability to self-govern because they have no education in his mind. They're not allowed to use their reason as they should use it. And that's kind of why he would have to go with... And also, let's not forget where his bread was buttered. He knew that. He could certainly not advocate a revolutionary form of political government that would just get him thrown right out.
I think, though, most church philosophers who come from a church background, of course I speak Catholic Church, would go with that. Primarily but it also presumes, just as a viable representative democracy presumes, a good and moral person.
Yes.
Which, if you are using your reason rightly, you should automatically come to be a good and moral person. And I think most people, when they think about it, even if you have to explain the terms to them, would say, well, okay, yeah.
So you're saying he's Hobbesian before Hobbes?
Maybe Hobbes is Aquinan before he knew it.
I'm thinking so. I'm thinking, because Hobbes' premise of the enlightened despot, the enlightened, the Leviathan that was run by the good absolutist. He's taken right from Aquinas.
Well, I think Aquinas probably would have more limits than an absolutist.
Well, that's correct. Yeah, it's absolute is probably not the best word for that.
But probably for Hobbes, that probably is
closer. Yeah, very much so. Yeah,
but not for Aquinas.
Yeah,
because again, if he's really the father of the Renaissance, he would not be for any kind of an absolutist.
Right. Yeah, Hobbes kind of went a little bit longer. He was an extremist in many ways, that he took the argument and took it to its logical extension as far as it would go.
I would say that Hobbes you could probably consider him at the opposite end of the spectrum. Because when you think about political philosophy, how societies morph and change, we tend to go from a period of lots and lots of freedom to either ever so slowly more and more control of that freedom, or it can also be a sudden control, because if there's too much freedom, it's anarchy.
Right.
Somebody always steps in the middle of anarchy who is organized. Organized man with a gun or sword is going to organize the anarchists pretty darn quick.
Very quickly.
Even if it's just to line them up on the wall and stab them or shoot them. So it goes back and forth. When there's too much freedom, you have excess. But when there's too much control, you also have excess in the other direction. And Aquinas, through reason, would have said neither extreme would be good. And most people recognize that.
That's right. Yeah, we all have a tendency, I think, towards equilibrium. Certainly in nature we do. And moderation, I think, is sometimes...
We give a lot of lip service to it.
Yeah.
Equilibrium, though, to most people just mean keeping everything the way it is for me, or it gets better for me.
Yeah.
Because for most people, because equilibrium certainly means nothing changes.
Right.
A lot of people want stuff to change.
Right.
Sometimes they don't think it can, so they accept equilibrium as it is.
People...
Others want it to change within certain parameters.
You know, guys, though, as important as he is, he's not without critics.
Oh, no.
I was fascinated by, if I understand it correctly, Descartes' criticism of Thomist thinking. It's very much built on your senses. You can synthesize what you're seeing, what you're hearing, with your reason. Descartes is, hey, your senses can lie to you. You have to use your judgment to exclude pieces of your senses, and therefore there can be this break in this logic to natural law.
Oh, yeah, he's saying that reason has its limits.
Well,
your
perception has its limits.
Yes. That's a good word. Your perception has limits.
Reason can be flawed by perceptions.
It's like an equation without a variable. There's no way to...
locked system.
Yeah.
Well,
there's no way to solve it.
I think a good Thomist would say, well, duh. That's what reason is judgment.
It's filling in the gaps in your senses.
Right. And sure, we might see one thing. Take a colorblind person. They're not going to see all the colors of the spectrum. So to them, something that's red may look green or black or blue or however their color shift goes. Whereas we think objectively it looks a certain way. As a matter of fact, most people, as I understand it, almost no one looks at something and sees exactly the same color.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Color is very much a
subjective
thing, even if it's only minor. Because think about it: how do you describe color to a blind man? How do you describe sound to a deaf man?
That's right. You
can't.
Not truly.
So he has a point that perception is not universally the same. But I think where it is not are the outliers. More than 2 standard deviations outside the bell curve.
Yeah.
So I think that is Descartes' problem in that
he has problems with the exceptions, and he's trying to tear down the rule.
Yeah. And well, maybe it goes back to his famous line, I think, therefore I am. For him, the thought is more important. Because thought is how you make your judgment.
Yes.
And you could, certainly you could make an argument that if you don't think, then, really, what kind of existence do you have? But,
there is no more need when you're constructing natural law than the notion of I exist because I know I exist.
Right. Which is idolatry. From the church perspective, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because all existence depends upon you.
Yep.
Very well, interesting. Very well put, sir.
Wow.
I like that. Yes.
Wow. Maybe we should drink more often.
I think you're right. Yeah. Well, we've been, Swiffer Reserve goes down rather smooth.
It does. It does.
Like, whoa, that's some heavy shit, bro.
Yeah, it is.
We like that, though. We like it heavy.
We like it heavy.
We like profundity.
How are we doing on time there, Big Dog?
Oh, we're about 35 minutes.
Oh, we're doing great.
Yeah, we're fine.
That's awesome.
Any final thoughts that we want to throw out on this,
No, I just love these kind of things, even though it might be a touch beyond my depth and my experience.
Experience, not depth. You can have it.
It's wonderful to hear you guys talk about it, and I hope it encourages people. Again, like you said, it's not that daunting. Dig into it.
Well, that's right.
Look up Aquinas, look up
the
Thomistic
beauty of
thoughts.
it is all his writings survive, like Augustine's.
Right.
I mean,
even if you have to go to Wikipedia, it's a start.
It's not bad.
It's in there. Bad. There's a bunch of it in there.
Right.
Spend some time with it.
Because it is so important.
It is so in-depth and so nuanced and so fruitful. Fecundity. It's got that fertility with it. It requires time. You really cannot do it justice to casually check it out.
Yeah.
You really have to decide, I really want to get my arms around this and spend some time with it. And I think you will be enriched by doing so.
But it's one of those dots you have to connect if you're exploring this thing we call the human experience.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got to go from Plato, Aristotle,
Augustine,
Aquinas, and beyond.
That's correct.
It's one of the dots
and
you've got to
dabble a little bit in in some of the contemporaries.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And
We will find that we kind of got some plans laid out in the future. There's a few others of these philosophers we're going to touch on because they're so, when they get it right, when they see something that universal,
or even if they get it wrong,
and
they can be important. I mean, we may not do heroes on them, but there's stuff out there that's so important to how the world is, what it's become.
Correct.
That we got to talk about it. We got to dig into it. We may have to drink a lot to get there,
well,
but
that's
we'll
fine.
do that.
That's what good bourbon
I'm
is
sure
for.
there's plenty of bourbon that can give us the gasoline for our engines.
And I mean, I got a gift card to a local liquor store, so
Oh yes.
Oh, fantastic.
We even beyond what we got already on the shelf, there's always more.
Always good to experiment.
Yes.
Safely at home.
That's right. That's right.
Yes, listeners, don't drink and drive.
That's right.
That's right.
Advice from Martin.
That's right. You can drink and listen to your podcasts. That's probably a good thing to do.
At home.
At home. At home. Well, or at a friend's house. Just not in the car. If you're driving. So
if you're in the car, leave out the bourbon, but don't leave out the podcast.
Exactly.
Bluetooth that phone to your car and dig into us on Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and iHeartRadio.
Absolutely. So one of the things I want to wrap up with here.
Do it.
One of the fascinating things, again, it's one of many. It was only about 100 years ago. Up until then, from the time of Aquinas-ish, I'm sure it took a while for this to become a more universal thing in the church. It was required that you read his stuff, that you learn Thomistic thinking.
Yes.
That you learn his philosophical way of looking at the church, of life, all of it, for you to study. And I don't mean just inside the church. Mm-hmm. Thomistic thinking would have been the one of, if not the primary schools of thought in any university, even after the Protestant Reformation / Rebellion.
Yeah.
So, and then for about 100 years, not quite 100 years, but 75 years-ish, maybe to 100, because we're not quite to 100 years, I think, Thomistic thinking kind of became passé in society at large, certainly, but even in the church. Probably his decline in society started with the Age of Reason, though. Oddly enough.
Yeah, there's an irony for you.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the Age of Reason throws out what makes Thomistic thinking well-rounded. Because it goes more to that, to Descartes' I know what is real because I know I am real.
The creeping relativism that slides in.
Yeah, Chesterton says, all Aquinas is common sense.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just articulated well.
Yep.
The heathen just quoted Chesterton. I love it.
That's right. That's right.
I tell you, a modern philosopher who is well-rooted in Thomistic thinking, that's Chesterton.
Well, Chesterton probably deserves his own episode, too.
Yeah, he probably does.
That's right. We hadn't thought
He
about that.
probably
One.
does.
All right, so we'll schedule that one for what, like May 2021?
Oh yeah, we're
we're
way planned
We're
out
gonna have to
here.
start going daily to catch up on all these things we want to talk about.
That's exactly right.
But anyways, but he's also made a comeback in the church, anyways, where the church has said you got to study the man. It doesn't make sense not to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Former Pope Benedict was a huge Thomistic thinker. Very much inspired by him, and I know you've not read any of his stuff. I can almost guarantee that.
Right, but I know he was a prolific writer.
Yes, prolific.
And I know you guys admire the daylights out of Benedict.
Yes, very much so.
He is one of those great thinkers.
He's a theologian first and foremost, and he'll say that. Very much
Yes.
Yeah.
But a philosopher too.
Yes.
Yes.
If you read his... it ended up being his seminal work, probably, even though he was upset to become pope because he wanted to write his own Summa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he wrote the 3-part book trilogy on the life of Christ.
The Jesus of Nazareth.
Jesus of Nazareth books.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I remember when I'm reading the beginning of the first one, and there's just note after note after note, and I'm at the time I didn't recognize it because I wasn't as well versed as I am now. But looking back, it's like, oh my God, that is so Thomistic because every sentence is packed full of meaning.
Right.
Yet it is so understandable.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that people don't realize about both. So if you want a modern example of what a good Thomist would be, somebody who's understandable, and granted, he didn't write on much that wasn't church related, so not everybody's going to read that. But the style is the same. It's understandable, it's well thought out, it's reasoned, and yet it is so packed full of meaning.
It's multi-leveled.
Yeah. It's kind of like watching a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Yeah.
There's the kids stuff that you're seeing and hearing, and then there's the adult stuff that is operating above and below.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going off the rails, but I'll just...
Pope Benedict is the Bugs Bunny of theology. That's what I just said.
Holy mackerel. That's pretty profound.
I can't believe I just said that.
It's the bourbon. Gotta be.
Does he see that as his way of being a shepherd of the flock?
Absolutely.
Is to be the intellectual...
Oh, yeah. That's the door he comes in through. Yeah. And that's because that's who he is.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
But that's also one of the reasons he was elected, too, because people saw that as a strength.
Yeah, Francis is more of a pastor.
Yes, he's pastoral, and Benedict is more of an intellectual.
Yes.
That's right.
Not that we're saying Francis is not smart.
That's correct. Not at all.
Don't think that, listeners. That's not what we're saying.
A different approach.
That's right. They come through different doors to do that.
And the church has to be all
as every
of that.
pope does. That's correct.
They
They all have their preferred... it's like you live in a mansion. It's all one mansion, but they prefer certain rooms. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, because it's a different facet of the diamond. Each papacy has its own charism. That's probably the best word to work with it.
Charism meaning that special talent or gift that is to be given to the rest of the flock.
That's exactly it. That's right. And it changes every time. And it's the mind of the church thinking, wait, we need a little of this now. We need a little of that now. And that's a good thing.
The flock needs all of those things.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Because we don't think as either or. Nothing is an either or proposition. We never think that way. It's always both and.
Right.
Very important.
You need intellectual underpinnings. You need to feed that reason need that all of us have as humans.
Right. We also need to feed the poor.
And you need to feed the pastoral caring.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I can put my arm around your shoulder and...
That's right. Walk with you. That's one of his words. Yeah.
Yes.
Accompaniment.
So, wow. Okay, we just discussed the nature of the papacy too.
Yeah, we did. All right, so I got two last things, and then we have to wrap this up.
Oh yes.
All right, so tie this into Tony Robbins.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Bugs Bunny and Tony Robbins.
Bugs Bunny
Holy
and Tony
shit.
Robbins.
And Benedict. Wow. Francis. Whoa.
Yes. Well, Thomas Aquinas is very much, he exemplifies this in what he wrote and talked, because he talked about the individual as well as the state. A good person and a good citizen not necessarily being the same thing.
Right.
Because a good citizen of Nazi Germany is not necessarily a good person. And just as a prime example.
It's a good example.
But, it was, I'm trying to think out the best way to put this. We like certainty and uncertainty. You just talked about that. That's what I think. We like
both and, yeah.
It's both and.
Yeah.
We like to know that we are safe.
Yeah.
We also like to know sometimes it's, takes a little bit of risk.
There's a little danger sometimes.
Right. We want to be with our loved one. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, but also, out of sight, out of mind. As we are creatures of dichotomy.
Yeah.
Not that it's either.
There's that word again.
It's both and.
We seem to use that word almost every single episode.
Yes. Now,
we've grown to be very Jungian, it sounds like.
Oh, wow. Yeah, very good.
Thank you, Niles Crane.
Yes.
So we've dropped another name in here. Write that down as another episode.
That's right, yeah.
So, we need to go back to the beginning. Always go back to the first principle. So, Thomas Aquinas, he was a Dominican.
Okay.
Right? So, Dominican and a Franciscan, or not a Franciscan, a Jesuit.
Right.
They were arguing one day about which order was the best.
Right.
And the Dominican said, well, our order was founded to fight the Albigensians. Or actually, I think that was the Franciscans. It was a different one for the Dominicans. But,
I think
it's the right.
Was the Albigensians?
You're right.
Okay.
Albigensians.
I believe that's correct.
And the Jesuits said, we were founded to fight the Protestants. I was like, really? And you think you were better? So, well, yes. Well, haven't seen many Albigensians lately, have you? Yeah.
So he's here all week, ladies and gentlemen.
Tip your servers.
Tip your servers, that's right.
All right, so gentlemen, that was a fantastic episode. I loved doing that.
Very much so.
That was a lot of fun. So, any last words? No? Good.
No.
Okay.
So thanks for being with us here every week at Snakes and Otters. New episodes every Friday. Be sure to spread the word on your own social media accounts and follow us and retweet us. Find us on Twitter at Snakes and Otters.
And when you share our messages and our podcasts on your social media, let them know that they can find us on Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Just search Snakes and Otters to listen.
And you can always send us an email at snakesandotterspodcast@gmail.com.
I'm Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis. Thanks for joining us.
This has been Snakes and Otters. Thanks for letting us into your head. We plan to live there rent-free for a long, long time.